What happens when two of country music's biggest stars sit down for what's supposed to be a friendly chat, and it turns into one of the most uncomfortable moments in daytime television history? You're about to find out, because what went down between Jason Aldean and Kelly Clarkson wasn't just awkward. It was explosive. Before we get into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me whose side you're on after you hear what really happened. Trust me, you're going to have an opinion. The studio lights were hot, the audience was packed, and Kelly Clarkson was doing what she does best, setting up her guest with that signature smile that's made her one of America's most beloved talk show hosts. Jason Aldean walked out to massive applause, waving to the crowd with that confident stride he's known for. Everything seemed perfect. Kelly stood up, gave him a hug, and they both settled into their seats. The audience buzzed with excitement. This was supposed to be fun, easy. Two successful artists with incredible careers, just having a conversation about music, life, and maybe some laughs along the way. Kelly leaned forward with her notes in hand, that warm energy radiating from her as always. She started with the usual pleasantries, asking Jason how he'd been, complimenting his recent tours, talking about how incredible his fans are. Jason nodded along, smiling at the right moments. But there was something in his eyes, something the cameras caught that maybe Kelly didn't notice right away. A guardedness, a tension, like he was waiting for something. Then it came. Kelly glanced down at her cards before looking back up, with that curious expression she gets when she's about to dig a little deeper. She asked about his songwriting, the stories he tells through his songs, how he connects with his audience. It seemed harmless enough. Jason answered steadily, explaining that he writes from personal experience, capturing real moments people can relate to. But then, Kelly tilted her head slightly and said something that changed the energy in the room. She brought up his songwriting choices, not just what he writes about, but who he writes for. She mentioned that some of his recent work had sparked conversations online, with fans interpreting his messages in different ways. It wasn't accusatory, but there was an edge there. Jason's jaw tightened. The smile didn't quite reach his eyes anymore. He said he writes what he knows, that country music is about telling real stories, and he's not trying to make everyone happy. He's trying to be honest. The audience clapped. Kelly nodded, but she didn't let it go. She asked if he ever thought about how his words might affect people differently, how what feels true to him might feel hurtful or exclusive to others. Jason straightened up, his tone firm. He told her he respects everyone's right to feel how they feel, but he's not going to apologize for being who he is or for representing people who relate to his music. He said there are folks out there who feel their stories aren't being told anymore, and he's proud to give them a voice. Kelly's warmth cooled just a bit. She set her cards aside, a deliberate gesture. She asked if he thought there's a difference between giving people a voice and reinforcing division. The audience went quiet. Jason leaned back, exhaled slowly, and said, "It's interesting how when someone like him talks about traditional values or small-town life, it's called divisive. But when others speak about their beliefs, it's called brave." He said he's tired of the double standard. Kelly replied calmly that she wasn't attacking him, just pointing out that words matter when millions are listening. That maybe it's not about censoring himself, but about being thoughtful. Jason shook his head and smiled tightly. He said that's the problem, that constant push to be careful. He knows his audience, he said. He knows what they care about. And he's not going to walk on eggshells just to avoid offending someone. If people don't like his message, they don't have to listen. It's that simple, Jason said firmly. Kelly's response came quick, sharper than before. It's not that simple, though, is it? She shot back. When you're a public figure, especially someone with as much influence as you have, you can't just throw your hands up and say people can take it or leave it. There are consequences to the things we say and the way we say them, and pretending otherwise is either naive or irresponsible. The air in the studio felt like it had been sucked out. The audience was completely silent now, some looking uncomfortable, others leaning forward like they couldn't believe what they were witnessing. Jason's face had gone from guarded to something harder, closer to frustration. He told Kelly he didn't come on her show to be lectured about responsibility or to defend himself for having opinions that don't line up with what Hollywood or the media think is acceptable. So Kelly fired back that she wasn't lecturing him, she was having a conversation. And if he couldn't handle being asked legitimate questions about his work and his influence without getting defensive, maybe that said something in itself. She said she respected his success and his talent, but respect didn't mean she had to agree with everything he did or stay quiet when she thought there was room for a deeper discussion. Jason stood up, not aggressively, but firmly. He looked at Kelly and said he thought they were done. He said he wasn't interested in being interrogated on live television, especially not by someone who clearly had an agenda. He said he thought this was going to be a conversation between two artists who respected each other, but clearly that wasn't what this was. Kelly stood up too, her voice rising slightly. She told him that walking away didn't prove his point. It only proved he wasn't willing to have a real conversation when things got difficult. She said, if he truly believed in what he stood for, he should be able to defend it without shutting down the second someone challenged him. Jason turned back toward her, his voice low but intense. He told her there was a difference between a challenge and an attack, and what she was doing felt a lot more like the latter. He said she invited him under the pretense of a friendly interview, but from the moment he sat down, it felt like she was trying to corner him, to get him to say something she could use against him. That's not journalism, he said. That's not conversation. That's a setup. The audience gasped. Kelly's face flushed, her composure cracking just slightly. She told him that was completely unfair, that she'd been nothing but professional. And if he felt attacked, maybe it was because he knew deep down that some of the criticism he faced was valid. She said she wasn't trying to tear him down. She was trying to understand where he was coming from, but he was making that impossible by being so defensive and combative. Jason's voice rose, not quite a yell, but close. He said he was defensive because he had to be. People like her, he said, were constantly looking for ways to twist his words or paint him as something he's not. He said he's proud of who he is, proud of where he comes from, proud of the people who support him, and he's not going to let anyone, not even Kelly Clarkson, make him feel ashamed of that. Kelly shot back that nobody was asking him to be ashamed. They were asking him to be accountable. There's a big difference, she said, and if you can't see that, then maybe you're not as thoughtful about your platform as you claim to be. Jason raised his hands in disbelief. His voice dripped with frustration as he told her she was doing exactly what he knew she would, taking a conversation about his music and turning it into a moral judgment about who he was as a person. He said that's what always happens when someone like him tries to speak honestly. It gets reframed, repackaged, and turned into something ugly. He said he'd seen it happen to other artists and public figures who don't toe the line, and he wasn't going to let it happen to him without speaking up. Kelly crossed her arms, her expression a mix of frustration and determination. She told him he kept saying, "Someone like me," and "someone like you," turning everything into an us versus them narrative. And maybe that was the real problem. She said maybe it wasn't that people were coming after him unfairly. Maybe the issue was that he was so locked into seeing himself as a victim of some larger agenda that he couldn't recognize when someone was genuinely trying to engage with him. She said she invited him on because she respected his work and wanted a real conversation, not a puff piece where she just smiled and nodded while he talked about tour, dates. Jason laughed, but it wasn't amused. It was sharp, bitter. He told her that a real conversation requires both people to come in with good faith, and he didn't think that happened here. From the moment she started asking about his songwriting, he said, there was an undertone, an implication that what he's doing is somehow problematic. He said she might call it curiosity or engagement, but to him, it felt like judgment. Kelly's voice grew firmer. She said questioning someone's choices isn't the same as attacking their character, and if he couldn't tell the difference, that was on him, not her. She said she's allowed to ask hard questions, especially when someone's work sparks debate and strong reactions. That's what responsible journalism looks like, she said. That's what honest conversation looks like. If you came here expecting me to praise you for 90 minutes without substance, then you misunderstood what this platform is about. Jason shook his head, jaw tight. He told her she could dress it up however she wanted, but what this really was her trying to make him answer for things he's not guilty of. He said she was acting like his music caused harm, as if he was trying to divide people or spread negativity, when all he's ever done is tell stories that reflect his life and the lives of the people he grew up with. Those people deserve representation too, he said. They deserve songs that speak to their experiences, and I'm not going to apologize for giving them that just because it makes some folks uncomfortable. Kelly stepped closer, her voice rising with intensity. She told him nobody was asking him to apologize for representing his community or telling his stories. What people were asking, what she was asking, was whether he ever stopped to think about the impact those stories have beyond his immediate audience. Music is powerful, she said. It shapes culture. It influences how people see each other and the world around them. And when someone with your level of success puts something out there, it reverberates. Ignoring that doesn't make you authentic. It makes you reckless. The word reckless hit Jason like a slap. His eyes flashed with anger as he pointed at Kelly and said, "Calling me reckless is out of line. Completely out of line." Jason said Kelly doesn't know him. She doesn't know what goes into his music or the thought process behind it. And she sure as hell doesn't get to stand there and act like he's careless with his platform. He said he's spent decades building his career, connecting with his fans, and being a voice for people who often feel voiceless. Reducing that to recklessness, he said, is not just insulting, it's ignorant. Kelly didn't back down. She told him that if he's so confident in what he's doing, if he's so sure that his intentions are pure and his impact is positive, then why is he so angry right now? She said defensive reactions like this usually come from a place of uncertainty, from knowing, on some level, that maybe there's truth to the criticism being raised. She said she's not trying to tear him down, but to get him to reflect, to consider whether the way he's communicating his values might be contributing to the polarization that's tearing the country apart. Jason's voice dropped, quieter but more intense. He told Kelly that she had a lot of nerve talking to him about polarization when she's the one creating it. He said she invited him onto her show in front of her audience, knowing full well that they'd likely side with her if things got heated. He claimed the whole setup was designed to put him on the defensive, to make him look bad. And now she's trying to turn it around and act like he's the problem for not just sitting there and taking it. He called that manipulation, plain and simple. Kelly's face flushed deeper, her voice trembling slightly with restrained emotion. She told him that accusing her of manipulation was ridiculous and offensive. Every single question she asked, she said, had been fair. Every point she raised was grounded in legitimate concerns people had expressed about his work. If he felt cornered, she said, it wasn't because she was manipulating him. It was because he was uncomfortable being held accountable for the messages he sends. Accountability isn't an attack, she said. It's a baseline expectation for anyone in the public eye. The fact that he treated it like an ambush, she added, said more about him than about her. Jason ran a hand through his hair, frustration building. He told her she kept using that word accountability like it was some kind of trump card that justified whatever she wanted to say. He said he is accountable to his fans, his family, himself, and the truth as he sees it. But he's not accountable to Kelly Clarkson's standards or anyone else's idea of what his music should be or who he should represent. She can disagree with him all she wants, he said. She can think his music is divisive or problematic or whatever label she wants to put on it, but she doesn't get to demand that he change who he is to fit her worldview. Kelly's eyes blazed with frustration. She told him that this wasn't about her worldview. It was about basic human decency and awareness. When his music makes certain groups feel excluded or marginalized, she said, when his rhetoric gets co-opted by movements that promote hate or division, he doesn't get to wash his hands of it and say, that's not what he intended. Intent matters, she said, but so does impact. And if he's unwilling to even acknowledge the impact his work has beyond his core fan base, then he's being willfully blind. Jason's frustration boiled over. He told Kelly she was twisting his words and his music into something they're not. His songs, he said, are about pride, community, and love for where you come from and the people who raised you. If other people take that and twist it into something hateful, that's on them, not on him. He said he can't control how every single person interprets his work, and it's unfair to hold him responsible for the actions or beliefs of people he's never met. Kelly shot back immediately. She told him no one's asking him to control how people interpret his work, but they are asking him to be aware of those interpretations and to speak out when his message is being misused. Silence in the face of misrepresentation, she said, is a choice, one with consequences. If he truly doesn't align with the hateful elements that latch onto his music, then he should be vocal about it. Instead, she said, he seems more interested in defending his right to say whatever he wants, without considering how it's received. Jason's fists clenched at his sides. He told Kelly she was putting words in his mouth and expectations on his shoulders that she had no right to put there. He said he's not responsible for policing every person who listens to his music or for issuing statements every time someone misinterprets a lyric. That's not his job, he said, and it's not any artist's job. The fact that she thinks it is, he said, shows how out of touch she is with what it means to create art that comes from an honest place. Art isn't supposed to be safe or carefully curated to avoid offending anyone, he said. It's supposed to be raw, real, and true to the person making it. Kelly's voice got quieter, but more cutting. She told him that hiding behind the idea of artistic freedom doesn't absolve him of responsibility. Yes, art should be honest and raw, she said, but it should also be thoughtful. Great artists throughout history, she reminded him, have managed to tell their truths while being conscious of the world they're speaking into. The fact that he seems unwilling or unable to do that suggests he's not as thoughtful as he claims to be. She said she's not asking him to be someone he's not. She's asking him to be better, to grow, to recognize that having a platform that big comes with obligations that go beyond just expressing yourself. Jason's voice turned cold and sharp. He told her he's not playing the victim. He's defending himself against someone who's been attacking him since the moment he sat down. She can call it a conversation, engagement, or whatever she wants, he said. But what it really is a hit job. He said she invited him,